So what do we do if we don't want to add or subtract integers with a number line? What if we just kind of want to do it in our head instead? So the first step for addition and subtraction is always simplify if you need to. So the cases we need to simplify are where we have that plus minus. We might have something like this, 2 plus negative 3, and we learned that a positive next to a negative, that's really the same as 2 minus 3. Or we might have a minus minus, maybe we have 5 minus negative 1. A minus minus we learned is 5 plus 1. So always do that simplification first. We want it to not have that double sign in a row because that makes it a lot more complicated. Don't forget that the first number, it doesn't matter what sign it is. I could change this to a negative 5, and that does not affect the fact that the minus minus became plus. So what happens is we have two situations then where we have same sign or opposite sign. So I'm actually going to change this to also to a negative so we can see a same sign situation. The 2 is negative and the 3 is negative. That is a same sign situation. So negative 2 minus 3, that's the same sign. Or they can both be positive. Positive 5 and maybe say positive 4. So both positive or both negative. That's our same sign situation. When that happens, the rule for adding and subtracting is to add the integers together and keep the sign. Negative 2 minus 3, what you're going to do in your head is 2 plus 3, and we say, well, that's 5. Then our answer is a negative 5 because they were both negative signs. So 2 plus 3 was 5, negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Or the 5 plus 4, we add the integers, 5 plus 4 is 9, and we keep it positive because they started out positive. So the rule is add the integers, keep the sign. And this is where the number line can be helpful. The number line helps us see this negative situation a little bit better. Positive, it's easy. We're like, well, I just count up 5, count 4 more, we make it to 9. Well, negative 2, count 3 more to the left, does take us to negative 5. So same sign, the rule is add integers, keep the sign. So if you end up with opposite signs, so for this example we have negative 5 plus 1, we simplified, and now we have one negative number and one positive number. This time I'm going to keep the numbers the same, but I'm going to switch the signs. Let's say we also had a positive 5 minus 1. So here's another case of opposite signs. One number's negative, one's positive. One number's positive, one's negative. When that happens, we subtract the integers and keep the sign of the bigger number. So for example, the negative 5 plus 1. We take the integers 5 and 1, and usually we just do the biggest minus the smallest, and we say, okay, in our head, 5 minus 1 is 4. That's a mental step that you're not going to necessarily write out. So we know 5 minus 1 is 4, but since the bigger integer, 5, is negative, our answer is negative 4. And 5 minus 1, we do the same thing. In our head, we say 5 minus 1 is 4. But since the bigger integer 5 is positive, we keep it a positive 4. So these integers, the signs can make it confusing, which is why I showed how to use the number line first, because the number line can make it a little bit easier. For example, this negative 5 plus 1, if we placed this on a number line, we would say, let's start at negative 5 and let's go to the right one space. It's a lot easier to see that starting at negative 5 and going right one space ends us at negative 4. It's sometimes easy to forget these rules, So that's why if you ever have an issue, you can always go back to the number line just to make it a little more clear and help you remember the correct way to add and subtract these integers. So just to recap, when you're doing addition and subtraction, if necessary, we need to simplify these plus-minus situations or minus-minus situations. That doesn't happen with every problem, but if that situation happens, we simplify first. If you end up with the same sign, the rule is to add the integers and keep the sign. If you end up with opposite signs, the rule is to subtract the integers and keep the sign of the bigger integer.